Hello everyone, this is part 15 of What If Naruto Was the God of Taijutsu, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Hinata felt her feet giving out underneath her. She had won. She had beaten Tenten, the weapons genius that graduated the year before her, but it had been a heavy victory. The paralysis poison was still seeping through her body and it was sapping her strength fast. Just as she felt her knees buckle, she felt warmth around her shoulders. Someone was helping her stand. Naruto-kun. Hinata turned her head slowly upwards. The blonde beamed down at her proudly as he held onto her. I did it. She leaned her head onto his chest. Yeah, you did it. Naruto looked over to Tenten. A group of medics were picking her up and setting her on a stretcher at this moment. Are you guys going to heal Hinata too? Naruto had a feeling he knew what the answer was, but he asked anyways. One medic sadly shook his head as he looked at Hinata. While I would like to, if she is not suffering from anything fatal, it is forbidden for us to heal her while she is still a contestant. Normally Naruto would have shouted at them about how unfair that was, instead he just nodded solemnly. Come on, Hinata. I'll get you back up to the contestant box. Hinata nodded. Thank you, Naruto-kun. Don't mention it, you did really well. Next all you have to do is cream that jerk cousin of yours. Naruto gave a feral smile as he thought about that battle. Hinata attempted to smile at the thought but couldn't. I don't think I'll be able to do much like this. Not a problem. Lee called from above. A moment later and he landed right in front of them. I have just spoken with Sasuke-kun and he informed me that the poison isn't meant to be long-term. It should be through your system in about 15 minutes. Nice. Naruto turned and smiled brightly at Hinata but was surprised to see she didn't seem to share his enthusiasm. What's wrong? That's good news, isn't it? Hinata nodded slowly. It is just difficult, having to fight family. Naruto grimaced. Everything was always complicated when it came to her family. He needed to get things moving, no need in depressing her. Anyway, good luck in your fight, bushy brow. Naruto nodded to his older teammate. I'll get Hinata up there as fast as I can so we can watch. Yosh. I am ready to let my fire shine just as brightly as Hinata's. Lee began doing stretches as he waited for Dosu to appear in the ring. They still had time though. Hayate hadn't even announced the next two combatants due to the volume of the crowd. They were still going wild over the conclusion to the last fight. Let's hurry. Naruto quickly got Hinata inside the stairwell and slowly began ascending the steps with her. He watched her closely on the way. Soon, it was too much for him to stay quiet. You feeling any better, Hinata? Hinata looked startled that he called to her. She had apparently been deep in thought. I'm still just kind of dazed. I really won, right? Naruto laughed. Yeah, you won. It was awesome. Everyone thought you were down for the count and then, bam. You knocked her lights out. Hinata smiled wearily. I almost forgot your knives. Hinata started reaching into her pouch to dig them out. The sound of footsteps caused both of them to stop and turn. Dosu stood at the top of the stairs. At first Naruto thought he had been spying on them, but on closer inspection, Dosu looked just as surprised to see them. Give them back when we reach the top. Naruto whispered to Hinata. She nodded. They slowly began walking up the stairs again. At the same time Dosu started walking down. As they passed each other Naruto paused but Dosu kept walking. Good luck out there. Naruto yelled. Dosu paused and turned curiously to look at Naruto. I hope you don't plan on self-destructing like your teammate. That's worse than just giving up. Dosu didn't respond. Instead he turned and continued walking down the stairs. Dosu reached the bottom of the stairs and continued walking. As talkative as ever, he stopped and turned to the voice. Kabuto was leaning against the wall, the Anbu cat mask was on, concealing his face. Aren't you next to the Hokage right now? Dosu eyed Kabuto warily. Perhaps, maybe I'm just a clone. Of course that one might be the clone. Dosu narrowed his eyes at Kabuto as he spoke. Maybe you both are clones. Kabuto laughed which only made the seal on Dosu's neck itch. His anger was beginning to well up. What do you want? I thought you had no more use for me. Don't misunderstand. Kabuto wagged his finger as he talked. I'm just passing on a warning. Just because you're useless doesn't mean you don't know too much. If you have any desire to survive, then I suggest you do well in this tournament. I can't afford you spilling any information while you lay in the infirmary. In fact, you weren't even supposed to make it this far. Most people S when implanted with the curse seal. The fact that you are still alive is pure luck. Dosu clenched his fist. It was all he could do to resist the urge to swing at the masked man in front of him. I will win this tournament. I'll make you regret casting me aside. Just watch. Dosu turned and continued walking. Kabuto smiled from behind his mask. I'm looking forward to that. Meanwhile, the other Kabuto was still leaning over the railing clapping dully. Now that was a twist. I really thought she was done for. Never underestimate the shinobi of this village. Sarutobi said with a small smile. We don't go down that easily. Kabuto stared at the old man out of the corner of his eye. Oh, that sounds kind of like a warning. It is just a fact. Damn. Ino yelled as she held onto her head with both hands. Tenten had that. What happened? Kiba laughed. Hinata knocked her for a loop. That's what happened. Shino adjusted his glasses. That win was quite unexpected. Even I believed she was defeated once the poison set in. I told you. Shikamaru mumbled. Those three can do anything, no matter how impossible it seems. Sakura shivered slightly. I wonder what kind of training they go through to be capable of doing that. I don't think it's training. Chuji managed to say between a mouthful of chips. He finished the bag and then continued. It's something different than that. It's their confidence in themselves. Shikamaru agreed. This caused Ino to snort. Hinata was the least confident girl in class. But when her confidence shows through, I think it makes her stronger than all of us, even Naruto and Lee. Sakura had a far-off look as she spoke. Kiba doubted she was even aware she had said it aloud. In the area reserved for the Hyuga, even the normally stoic group was talking excitedly. Hiyashi, your daughter has grown well. An older man with an unmarked forehead praised. Yes, thank you. Hiyashi nodded to the old man's thanks. I'm curious though, I haven't seen you training her in our clan's techniques. Furthermore, what ability did she use to get out of the effects of the poison? Hiyashi had to resist the urge to turn an annoyed eye to the older man. All credit to her growth goes to her team and sensei. I had nothing to do with it and therefore cannot say what she did to break through the poison. Although Hiyashi said this, he had a good idea what had let Hinata do it, but the elder would have thought it preposterous so he didn't bother to say it. The elder looked concerned by Hiyashi's answer but that was it. Instead he changed topics. If she keeps this up, she may well be able to avoid being marked as a branch member. Of course, that doesn't bode well for little Hanabi. Hiyashi didn't try to stop himself from glaring this time. The old man had been expecting the look but still stepped back in surprise. I think that is a discussion for another time, don't you? Why yes, I see that both contestants are on the field. I pray you keep in mind though that your daughter will be fighting a branch member in a couple of rounds. You better hope she doesn't shame us. Hiyashi continued to glare at the old man who refused to meet his eyes. I am sure they will both show the true pride of our clan. Guy was practically jumping around the whole arena, he was so ecstatic. How do you like that, Kakashi? It's a little too early to be getting excited. You still have 2 students left to fight. A lot can happen. If Kakashi was at all perturbed having lost 1 student, he didn't show it. Lee won't even break a sweat here. Just you watch. Guy pointed dramatically down at the arena. Oh, I'm watching, Kakashi said with his nose in a book. The crowd was just finally winding down but one soul in particular was still cheering strongly. That's the way Hinata. I knew you wouldn't lose. Tazuna waved his arms wildly as he yelled. Tsunami looked embarrassed. Dad, act your age for once, please. What do you mean you knew she wouldn't lose? You were the first one to start crying when it looked like she was out. Inari mumbled. That's not true. Tazuna denied the accusation. Temari snorted at the exchange. She turned to the arena and looked at the 2 combatants. What do you think about Lee-san's odds? She asked Haku. The feminine boy rubbed his chin. I'm inclined to say he should win without a problem, but if this guy self-destructs too then he might be in trouble. That comment caused Temari to smirk. Otogakure sure is cowardly. I can't believe we had considered allying with them. Haku nodded, but he had to wonder. Dosu didn't seem like either of his teammates. He seemed to value the life of his friends. Maybe he was just looking too much into things. Hayate gave a small cough as he looked at Lee and then at Dosu. Both boys were calmly preparing in their own way. Lee was still doing some stretches and Dosu stood completely still with his one visible eye closed. Hayate cleared his throat and got both of their attention. Are both of you prepared? He asked. Yes, I am ready to have a most youthful battle. Lee stood straight and saluted Hayate, an act that greatly confused the proctor. Yeah, he turned and looked at Dosu who hadn't answered yet. I'm ready. Dosu nodded his consent and Hayate nodded back. He then gazed up at the crowd. Most of them had calmed down and seemed to be waiting for him to give the signal. He raised his hand into the air. Let the third match begin. He dropped his hand and jumped backwards. Lee wasted no time. He immediately brought out 4 shuriken and threw them at his opponent. He was then charging right behind them. Dosu brought his arm up and deflected the shuriken with his sound manipulator. Without waiting another second, he swung his arm forward, attempting to catch Lee with a wave of sound. To his complete surprise, Lee vanished. What? Behind you. Dosu felt Lee's felt drill into his back, sending him tumbling forward and face first into the ground. Damn you, Dosu grumbled as he picked himself up. Lee made no move to attack him as he did. Are you looking down on me? Lee shook his head. I want this to be a fair fight. I will not attack you if your guard is down. Dosu started laughing. A fair fight? Do you have any idea how ridiculous you sound? This is the world of shinobi. Nothing is fair in our world. Dosu wiped some dirt off his face before whispered to himself. In this unjust world, you're betrayed even though you did everything you could. Lee's bushy brow furrowed. He had barely caught what Dosu had said. Even if the rest of the world betrays you, while you are my opponent in this match, I will still fight fair and square. Enough already, Dosu muttered before charging forward. No one asked for your kindness. He shouted and swung his arm again. To his annoyance, Lee once again vanished. This time though, Dosu spun around fast and as he predicted, Lee was right behind him. The same trick won't work twice. He swung, expecting Lee to be off guard this time, so it was he was surprised when Lee managed to evade yet again. Damn. Dosu quickly turned around but Lee wasn't there. Then he saw it, just a flicker of movement that occurred overhead. Thinking fast, Dosu dove backwards and just barely dodged Lee's descending kick, which split the ground when he struck. Lee freed his foot from the ground and was charging forward. Too fast. Dosu took a nervous step backwards and brought his arm up to defend himself. It looked like he was going to block Lee's punch, but as if by magic, Lee's fist shifted slightly to the left and inside his guard, catching the Otogenin right in the chin. Dosu spun around a couple times but managed to stay standing. He instantly regretted it. Lee was in the air spinning. Konoha Senpu. The kick caught Dosu in the upper arm and sent him crashing sideways to the ground. Lee settled back into his Goken stance and waited for him to get back up. You think you're doing me a kindness? Dosu yelled as he got back to his feet. I don't need your pity. I'll show you my true power. Having said this, Dosu reached to his neck and wrenched his scarf off. He then unclipped the straw raincoat that clung to his back. With a heavy thud, the raincoat hit the ground. He dropped the scarf, which made a similar thud. Lee's eyes brightened. So you have taken to wearing weights too. That is an excellent show of youth. Keep talking like that when I'm pushing your face in the dirt. Dosu apparently took Lee's comment offensively, and a second later and he was off. To most people in the crowd it appeared that he vanished just as Lee had been doing. Dosu appeared behind Lee, his arm poised to swing. Now I got you. Lee's arm shot out backwards and grabbed Dosu's arm before he was able to move it at all. What? You are certainly much faster than just a moment ago. Lee nodded a couple times. However, you have not been using the weights long enough to be able to match my speed. Dosu didn't see Lee move again, but suddenly the back of his foot was planted firmly on his cheek. Dosu went spinning through the air before he crashed onto the ground and skid a few feet. Damn it, Dosu cursed. He attempted to stand back up but stumbled slightly. Is this really as far as my own strength takes me? Is this all I've managed to achieve? He again tried to get back up but ended up slipping to the ground. I won't let this be the end of it. I have something to prove. The mark on Dosu's neck reacted and quickly began expanding, and while no change was visible on the outside due to his gauze and clothes, everyone in the arena felt it. With the power of the curse seal flowing through him, Dosu found it incredibly easy to get back to his feet. In fact, he felt completely renewed. This is great. Dosu laughed and cracked his neck a couple times. I'm going to pay you back 10 times over for before. Lee smiled happily back. That is the spirit, Dosu-kun. Never give up. This time he was the one to attack first. Dosu jumped to avoid Lee's leg sweep and then with greater speed than before twirled his body around and planted his own kick in Lee's right shoulder. I got you. Dosu yelled triumphantly as Lee skid back a couple of feet but managed to keep his balance. Nice work, Dosu-kun. To Dosu's eye, Lee seemed thrilled. Quit it with that annoying attitude. Dosu shouted and charged again. Lee's smile slipped slightly. I do not mean to look down on you. That's not the point. Dosu was beyond irritated. His life was on the line here and yet this kid was just smiling and treating this tournament like it was a joke. What was wrong with him? Dosu swung with his left arm this time instead. Lee caught his fist with his left hand and threw his own punch with his right. Dosu smirked and brought up his sound manipulator. Lee paused just before he hit it. Now you're mine. Dosu took advantage of Lee's hesitation and pulled both feet up at the same time, in an attempt to drop-kick his opponent. Lee let go of Dosu's fist and took a small step backwards before disappearing in a green blur. Not this time. While still in midair, Dosu began spinning rapidly like a drill. Lee, who had appeared just to the side with his elbow raised, was caught completely off guard as he was assaulted by sound waves. Dosu, his spin slowing, landed on his feet and on his next spin clocked Lee right in the side of the head with his fist. Lee hit the ground hard. He slowly tried to get back up but instead he hurled the contents of his breakfast. Dosu broke out into a high-pitched laugh. This power is fantastic. To think I would be able to move like that, it's incredible, don't you think? Dosu didn't wait for Lee to try and get up or answer. Instead he kicked Lee right in the stomach, rocketing the genin across the field and straight into the wall of the arena. Lee wiped his mouth of the rest of the bath from his mouth as he used to wall to stand himself back up. Guess I have no choice. He muttered to himself. He hadn't wanted to take his weights off until at least the second round, but it seemed there would be no helping it. He had Guy-sensei's permission to win however he wanted after all. Lee reached down to grab the weights when he sensed a presence. He looked up in surprise to see Dosu right there, his fist edged back. Crud. Lee put both hands on the wall and back-flipped himself up it multiple times. He just barely dodged Dosu's punch, which sent shards of stone flying everywhere and leaving a crater in the wall. Damn, and here I thought I had enough power to punch through it completely. Dosu pulled his hand from the wall and flexed it a couple times. He then turned his gaze upwards. Lee was on the wall staring down at him. He's fast, Lee acknowledged as he pulled his weights off. However, if it is a combine of speed I will not lose. He dropped both his weights which fell towards Dosu. Dosu immediately jumped upwards and dodged the weights on his way up. The sound of two small explosions behind him caused Dosu to stop and turn just in time for dust to completely envelop him. Just how much did that weigh? That was the only thing Dosu could think to say. A very youthful amount. Dosu ducked under a kick he couldn't even see. He then ran more upwards, quickly breaking free from the smoke. A small hole in the dust revealed that Lee too had already broken free from it. Dosu almost let this observation catch him from blocking Lee's newest kick. Dosu skid across the wall and just barely managed to keep from unsticking himself. Damn, like hell am I going to lose to you just because you dropped a couple pounds? Dosu felt even more power rushing through his seal. He dashed forward in a zigzag pattern. Lee's eyes followed Dosu as he got closer and closer. The only thing he was really afraid of was that sound arm. He still hadn't completely recovered from the effects of the last swing after all. Yosh, Lee said to himself just as Dosu reached him. Take this. Dosu swung his sound manipulating arm. Lee stepped inside Dosu's guard and deflected the arm to the right, sending sound waves in the wrong direction. Dosu had anticipated Lee trying to dodge the attack, not deflect it. Lee grinned widely to himself as he buried two quick jabs into Dosu's gut that lifted his feet from the wall. He then jumped and delivered a spinning kick that sent Dosu straight towards the ground. Dosu cursed in his head at his own carelessness. He flipped in the air and managed to land on his feet, but the shock from the hard landing sent shivers up his spine and caused his knees to lock up. Lee, however, landed perfectly and immediately landed another punch that sent Dosu into the wall. Damn it, Dosu repeated. He could feel the power of the curse seal beginning to recede. Before he could properly think of a strategy, Lee was in his face again. Dosu brought his right arm again, knowing Lee wouldn't dare punch it in the fear of sending sound waves at himself. However, this time Lee didn't hesitate and punched into the arm at a blinding speed that shattered the device on Dosu's arm into pieces. Impossible, Dosu had never even considered it possible that his weapon could be broken. Kabuto had said himself that it was made of the sturdiest alloy available. The shock was so great Dosu hardly registered the foot that clocked him in the side of the head and sent him spinning to the ground. Am I going to S? He mumbled to himself from where he lay. I won't KU. Dosu's eye widened. He turned and saw it was Lee who had responded. He was smiling down at him just like before, this time giving him a thumbs up. I have no reason to KU. You are making this a most excellent match. Again, Dosu felt incredible anger. This kid didn't get it. He didn't get anything. Dosu seethed. He felt the power of the cursed seal surging like never before now. Lee continued to smile as he waited for Dosu to stand up. Dosu got to his feet just as a purple aura became visible around him. Lee's bushy brows furrowed at the sight of the dark chakra, but he didn't say anything. Dosu was standing, so that meant he was ready. Lee nodded to himself and then moved forward. I'll destroy you. Dosu screamed at the sky. The purple chakra erupted violently from his body, launching Lee backwards and sending him spinning through the air. Lee barely managed to land on his feet, and the sight of Dosu when he did caused his eyes to go wide. The bandages normally covering Dosu's face had ripped to shreds, revealing dark gray skin and two strange triangular ears on either side of his head. His white hair fell back his head like a spiky mane. His sandals ripped apart as his feet became bigger and his toes turned into claws. Last, the underside of his sleeves ripped apart as two wings formed under his arm span. You look just like a bat. Lee couldn't believe the transformation he had just witnessed, and judging by the extreme silence from the crowd, he doubted they could either. Dosu looked down and seemed to observe himself the best he could. Yes, he whispered before crouching down. He then started flapping his wings and slowly he lifted off the ground. Yes. A moment later and he was flying high above the stadium at frightening speeds. Not good. Lee pulled out a couple of shuriken and threw them upwards. Not surprisingly, Dosu managed to dodge. Let's see you hit me now. Dosu laughed. You may be fast, but that speed means nothing while I'm in the air. You have to come down to fight me eventually. Lee shouted back upwards. I plan on it. Having said that, Dosu immediately dove towards the ground at great speed. Just a split second before he would have hit the ground, he stopped and immediately flew straight at Lee. Lee jumped to the side and just barely dodged being outright rammed by the flying shinobi. He rolled and began to get back up, but Dosu was back again and this time nailed Lee full force. The spandex-clad boy skid hard against the ground before rolling to a stop. When he managed to stumble back to his feet, Dosu was high in the air again. Lee sighed and ran his hand through his hair. I really did not want to have to go this far in the first round. Lee then spread his legs out and crossed his arms in front of himself. Oh, so you still have a trick left. Dosu mumbled to himself as he saw Lee change his stance. Go ahead and try it, not like it will make a difference. First gate, open. Lee bellowed as a surge of energy burst forth from his body. All right, let's go. Lee pushed himself off the ground so hard that the spot he was standing on crumbled to pieces. What the hell? Dosu was off as Lee's knee drilled itself into his stomach. Konoha Daigensho. Lee spun around and nailed Dosu in the cheek with his elbow next, sending the boy spinning away from him. You bastard! Dosu corrected his flight and managed to remain at the same altitude. Meanwhile, Lee began descending back towards the ground. You may have got me off guard, but there's no way you can dodge while in midair. Dosu flew at Lee as he shouted. I would not count on that. Lee kicked off of seemingly nothing and launched forward towards Dosu. Impossible. Dosu altered his course and just barely managed to dodge Lee's spinning kick. You projected yourself forward with pure energy. Nothing is impossible. Lee performed a backflip and launched himself forward, grimacing in pain as he did. He wasn't going to say it aloud, but doing this had the huge drawback of ripping his muscles apart each time, so he was going to have to finish this in the next couple moves. Nodding to himself, Lee whipped out his kunai as he got closer to Dosu. He was going to have to sever one of his wings so he could return him to the ground. Just as he got within range, Dosu gave a quick smirk before opening his mouth wide. A horrid screech erupted forth that halted Lee in his tracks, despite being in the air. It wasn't just Lee who was affected though. The whole crowd immediately covered their ears in a futile attempt to drown out the horrible noise. Lee began tumbling head over feet towards the ground and without the ability to control his fall painfully into the earth and didn't move. Dosu erupted with laughter and sailed higher into the air until he was level with the Hokage and Kabuto. Did you see that, Kabuto? I won't BS today. I'm going to win this whole tournament. HMPH, Kabuto smirked and readjusted his glasses so his eyes became visible. To Dosu's ire, he was staring down at the arena floor. Dosu followed his gaze and was surprised to see Lee wobbly getting to his feet. You just don't know when to give up. Dosu nosedived at the ground again. This time he intended to crash into Lee like a meteorite, ensuring that he would never get up again. Lee was on his feet but stumbling around pointlessly, which caused Dosu to smirk. He was far too dizzy to realize he was less than 3 seconds away from being utterly crushed. 2 seconds until the impact and Lee stopped moving. 1 second and Dosu flipped so his feet were the first thing to hit the ground. And then Lee just tucked and rolled forward, causing Dosu to pointlessly into the ground at full force. The hell? Dosu was buried up to his neck in the dirt and ached all over from the impact. But it didn't make sense to him. That shouldn't have been possible. Dosu was positive his sound attack had completely scrambled Lee's senses, so being able to move like that was definitely impossible. You lucky bastard. Dosu reached his arms out and pulled himself out of the ground, but your luck has just run out. He flew forward again, this time Lee's back was to him. Just before he reached Lee this time though, the genin bent completely backwards and touched both hands on the ground, causing Dosu to fly straight over, but before he got too far, Lee's feet came up and him in the nose. Dosu was sent crashing backwards into the ground just in front of Lee, causing him to cough up B. After that, Lee began to stagger around aimlessly again. Naruto-kun, does that look familiar? Hinata asked as she studied the way Lee was moving. Naruto nodded in shock. Isn't that the drunken fist? Drunken. Sasuke looked at the two of them. He hasn't had any alcohol though. Hinata shook her head. In this case it is more of a dizzy fist, but the effect is the same. Lee Senpai is like a completely different person when he gets this way. More like completely unstoppable. Naruto shivered as he thought about the one time he had to fight Lee like this. Unstoppable how? Sasuke asked, but he had a feeling he was about to see. Dosu had lifted himself back up. What is going on here? What did you do to protect yourself from my noise attack? Dosu then let out a small gasp as his eyes met with Lee's. You're not even aware of what's going on, are you? Dosu felt disgusted. He had gotten wailed on by a kid who couldn't even be called conscious. That does it. Dosu flapped his wings just enough to lift him off the ground before flying at Lee at full force. Just before he reached him, Lee spun around and his leg into Dosu's face. Before Dosu could go flying far away, Lee's arm snatched his ankle and Lee him into the ground. Dosu hit the ground so hard he bounced up to waist level where Lee's knee met with his solar plexus, sending Dosu spinning in a front flip. Then Lee's forearm connected with Dosu's neck, causing him to gag but finally knocking him away from the vicious O. Dosu lay on the ground for a few moments without moving before he began to crawl his way up. God damn it, he cursed as he felt the power of the curse seal retreating. His grayish skin was retracting backwards, his ears, feet, and arms returned to normal. Finally, the long white hair he had became short, brown spiky hair. I'm going to Dosu rolled himself over so he was on his back, but it was no good. He couldn't get himself back up. Lee suddenly let out a loud groan. What happened? He looked around and saw Dosu on the ground. Dosu-kun, who did that to you? Any strength Dosu had left to fight vanished with that question. Lee had completely crushed him without even being aware of his surroundings. It's all over. He lay his head down and stared up at the sky. Hayat coughed as he walked forward and raised his arm into the air. The winner of this round is. Stop. Hayat stopped and turned his head in surprise. Dosu too lifted his head back up so he could look at the boy who had shouted. This isn't right, Lee continued. I don't know what happened, but whoever put Dosu-kun down like that wasn't me. This actually caused Dosu to become angry again. Are you kidding me? You kicked Maya. It was you. Even if it was me, it shouldn't count. At the very least tell me what happened and I will let you do the same to me. It will put us on the same playing field. Lee stamped his foot as he directed his shouting at Dosu now. You sound like a baby. Dosu yelled back. Fair or not fair, what does any of that matter? Fact is I can't fight anymore anyways. I lost this fight and my life is over. I give up already. Everything I've ever done has been for nothing. Dosu let his head fall back down. Lee clenched his fist and grit his teeth. He didn't say anything at first but instead began walking forward at a brisk pace. He walked until he was right over Dosu before dropping to his knees and grabbing the scruff of Dosu's shirt. What are you doing? Dosu asked in surprise. Just shut up and clench your teeth. Lee shouted. Dosu looked confused but he got his answer as he watched Lee his fist backwards. A second later and Lee punched Dosu straight in the jaw, sending his head crashing into the ground. What the hell was that for? I said I quit already. Exactly. Lee shouted back. Never give up. Keep fighting with everything you have. Your life will never have been for nothing as long as you put everything into what you do. Dosu narrowed his eyes in anger and his hand picked up some dirt off the ground. He then threw the dirt into Lee's eyes and a second later and he returned the punch to the jaw that Lee had just done. Lee was knocked off Dosu and onto his back, but to everyone's surprise Lee started laughing. That's right. Just like that, you can keep fighting. Lee wiped the dirt out of his eyes and stumbled back to his feet. Keep fighting until you can't anymore. Believe in yourself and it won't have been pointless. Even if you lose, know that you've done your best. Goddamn, you're annoying. Dosu grumbled as he stumbled up to his feet as well. When he was standing, Lee began to chuckle a little. What is it now? Lee immediately stopped. I was just surprised by how normal you look without all your Otogakure attire. You're only a little shorter than I am when you stand straight and your hair kind of reminds me of Naruto's. Even your face is normal. Dosu wanted to get mad but instead he just sighed at that comment. Enough already. I'm tired. If we're going to finish this fight then let's do it. Lee smiled. You got it. He ran forward a considerable amount slower than before, but that wasn't surprising considering he was still recovering from the effects of the extreme dizziness and the Hachiman. Lee went to throw a punch but stumbled and missed without Dosu having even to dodge. Dosu didn't waste the opportunity and managed to punch Lee right in the face. Lee staggered backwards and before he could recover Dosu punched him in the face yet again. Dosu pulled his fist back and went to punch again but Lee grabbed his fist this time. Then Lee's knee drilled in Dosu's stomach causing him to double over. Lee brought both hands above his head and pressed them into the back of Dosu's head. Almost miraculously, Dosu managed to stay on his feet and he jumped forward, ramming Lee in the stomach and tacking him over. Both genin rolled around on the ground attempting to punch, kick and push each other however possible. Dosu bit down on Lee's shoulder while Lee began pulling at the top of Dosu's hair. Hayat and the crowd watched with open mouths as the two trained shinobi wrestled around on the dirt like children at a playground. It was so surprising that Hayat forgot all about his cough. This is ridiculous. Dosu finally shouted and pushed himself away from Lee and rolled to his feet. Lee did the same. This is it, I'm putting everything I got into this blow. Dosu charged forward and threw his most powerful punch which connected with Lee's face. Then I shall do the same. Lee shouted back. He knocked Dosu's punch aside and retaliated with his own. It clubbed Dosu right in the cheek with a loud smack. After that, everything was silent. The only noise was the two boys' heavy breathing. 10 seconds passed. 20. Finally, after half a minute Dosu slipped down to his knees. Nice punch, Lee-san. Dosu hit the ground with a thud. Not bad yourself, Dosu-kun. Lee nodded down at the unconscious genin. May I? Hayat stepped forward and raised his hand in the air again. Lee nodded. I shall not interrupt this time. Hayat dropped his hand. The winner is Rock Lee. The crowd immediately erupted into cheering and the medical shinobi ran forward with a stretcher to get Dosu. Haku got to his feet and walked to the stairs. Where are you going? Temari shouted at him. Bathroom. Haku answered without turning back. He was moving quickly down the steps. Speaking of which, I have to go too. Tazuna said as he got up. I couldn't leave in the middle of that fight though. It was so intense. Tazuna reached the stairs but then stopped. Haku, you're going the wrong way. The bathrooms are up the steps. Haku didn't hear him and kept running. He was already going down the next flight of steps. Curious. Temari narrowed her eyes at the spot Haku had just disappeared at. Ha ha ha. Guy laughed happily. How was that, Kakashi? Most youthful if I say so myself. That's two for me. Your overconfidence is going to be your downfall, Guy. Kakashi replied lazily. Your lethargy will be yours. Guy replied instantly. The next battle could very well decide everything. It might also tie us up, and even if it doesn't, you still have Neji to get through. You should know better than to underestimate your old student. Guy made an unreadable expression as he turned back to the Genin box which Lee had just jumped up into. How was that? Lee shouted as he landed next to his teammates. Was it not a most youthful showing? Hinata giggled quietly while she nodded. You could barely walk a minute ago, Lee senpai, but now you're running up the wall already. That's the power of youth, duh. Naruto shouted as he and Lee exchanged high fives. Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke are the next two contestants. The fight shall begin in 5 minutes. Hei's voice penetrated into box easily. Alright guys, I gotta go. Naruto turned and noticed Sasuke had already disappeared and was probably on his way down. Good luck, Naruto-kun. Hinata leaned forward and gave him a quick K on the cheek. No pressure Naruto, but let's go for a first round sweep. Lee gave Naruto the thumbs up. Naruto returned the gesture, as if there was ever an alternative. He then turned and began racing down the steps. You are all truly foolish. Neji muttered quietly to himself. If anyone had heard him though, no one said anything. Naruto hit the bottom of the first flight of stairs. He then began running down the dark hallway that led to the next flight of stairs. Just before he reached the end of the hallway though, 3 figures stepped out in front of him. Naruto slowed to a stop and looked up at the huge men in front of him. What's up? You guys want my autograph before I go? Naruto played dumb. Anyone could tell right off the bat that these guys were less than friendly. He could sense 2 of them attempting to sneak up quietly behind him at the same time. Listen punk. The one in the middle spoke up in a gangly voice. Some folks with big money have got the bets placed on the Uchiha kid. He's going to win this whole tournament, understand? The man lifted the hem of his shirt, showing off a kunai hook to his pants. One of the other guys was already sliding on brass knuckles and the third man was reaching into his back pocket for something. It was then that Naruto realized they didn't even intend to let him fight at all. They were going to try and K him here. The 2 that were behind him were almost in position too. Naruto smirked. He had this no problem. Just before he could open his mouth to make a smart response through, the thug on the left had his face into the wall by a strong kick. A moment later and Sasuke landed in the middle right next to Naruto. You Uchiha Sasuke. The man in the middle shouted. This type of stuff makes me sick. Tell whoever hired you that I'm going to win with my own power or not at all. Sasuke slid into his stance, not even bothering to activate his Sharingan. TCH, get him. K the brat but don't harm Uchiha. All 4 standing men charged at once. Without saying a word Naruto went backwards and Sasuke forward. 1 move from each one of them and 1 guy was down. Another move and all 4 were down. Suddenly, the guy Sasuke had beat up first was up and swinging his brass knuckle right at Sasuke's face. Sasuke ducked down so his back was straight with the floor and a second later and he felt Naruto's hand on his back, using it to launch himself into the air and above the man. Sasuke then ran forward and delivered a punch to the man's stomach while Naruto nailed him in the back of the head. The man collapsed to the ground in an unconscious heap. What teamwork, one of the men mumbled before he passed out too. TCH. Sasuke shook his head. I don't know what annoys me more, the fact that I had to waste energy on S like this or the fact that we really do work flawlessly together. Naruto shook his head. I would have had them just fine by myself. You wouldn't have to be annoyed at all if you hadn't interfered. I was making a point. I fight my own battles. Sasuke turned before mumbling a little more, and no one messes with my friends without going through me. What was that? We're going to be late thanks to your slow hurry up. Sasuke shouted while he hurried down the steps. Dosu quickly regained consciousness inside the medical ward of the arena. He was lying in a bed in a big room. The only other occupant of the room was an unconscious Tenten. Dosu attempted to sit up immediately but cringed from the pain. He was completely covered in bandages. Damn it, I lost after all, huh? He asked at the ceiling. You sure did. The unexpected voice caused him to jump. He turned his head and saw Kabuto with the Anbu outfit standing there. Damn. Dosu turned his head back to the ceiling. Looks like Lee was wrong about you. Everything you did was for nothing. Kabuto pulled out a kunai and held it above Dosu's throat. Shut up. Dosu was surprised by how scratchy his voice sounded. Even weirder was the fact that his vision was getting blurry. Are you crying? Kabuto asked, sounding completely amused by the idea. No. Dosu shook his head in fierce denial, but even he realized that Kabuto was right. Yet it didn't make sense. He had been prepared for this since he'd been betrayed, since he had joined Otogakure to begin with. What inside him had changed that he now cried at the thought of his death? Kabuto started cracking up. This is too funny. Some worthless Konoha genin shows you the slightest little bit of kindness and you get soft. Tells you that your life meant something. That if you do your best it will work out and you went and fell for it. Well, what has it got you? He's only gone and made you feel crappy right before us. Dosu opened his mouth and a choked sound came out. What was that? I said don't call him worthless. He's a better person than you'll ever be. Dosu wasn't sure what about Lee compelled him to stick up for him, but hearing Kabuto badmouth him set something off inside. Kabuto laughed harder. This whole village is worthless, just like you. Say another bad thing about this village and I'll shove this sword through your mouth. Dosu turned his head in surprise. Behind Kabuto was a mirror of ice with a boy in it. Sticking out of the ice mirror was a katana. Oh, if it isn't the genin proctor. Kabuto said sarcastically. What brings you here? Haku sighed. Why did they still call him that? I was just looking into something I saw interesting. Interesting. Surely you don't mean this boy? Kabuto asked as he looked down at Dosu. Maybe I do. Haku replied nonchalantly. Well, I'm sorry to inform you, but I intend to kill him right now. Kabuto raised his kunai a little. Move another centimeter and I'll spear your heart. Haku warned. Tell me something, genin proctor. Have you ever heard the saying action is faster than reaction? Kabuto asked evilly. It was Haku's turn to smirk. Actually, I have. Before he even finished talking, the door was completely shattered and Zabuza's sword came spinning into the room. Kabuto was caught completely off guard and the sword pierced him right in the stomach. Just a second later and Kabuto puffed into smoke and Zabuza's sword hit the ground with a clang. You're late, Haku said as he stepped out of the mirror and Zabuza walked into the room. The kid's still alive, isn't he? Zabuza grumbled as he picked up his sword. That's not the point. One more sentence and it would have been over. Haku rubbed his temple. Sometimes it was hard to believe Zabuza was older than him. If you saved me for information, I'll tell you whatever you want. Dosu's voice broke the two from their bickering. Haku and Zabuza looked at Dosu before looking at each other. Zabuza then shrugged. Get what you can out of him. If it's anything new, report it to an Anbu. I'm still on the lookout for the real one. The real one? Dosu asked in surprise. Zabuza nodded. The Yamanaka are a truly incredible clan. That Four Eyes freak showed up next to the Hokage and immediately the Anbu and a few Jonin were given a mission to locate the real one. That one next to the Hokage is most definitely a shadow clone. Dosu and Haku both nodded slowly. Anyways, Dosu-san. My name is Haku and I have a proposition for you. In exchange for the information. Dosu asked warily. Haku shook his head. No, this would benefit both you and me though. Word on the street is you're looking for a new village. As luck has it, I need one more teammate. There he is. Ino squealed in excitement as Sasuke and Naruto quickly emerged into the arena and took their respective places. This fight is going to be over in a minute. No way is it going to take forever like those last two. Yeah, Naruto'll have Sasuke running with his tail between his legs in no time. Kiba nodded in mock agreement to Ino. Like hell dog breath, Ino yelled at Kiba, her hair whipping around in fury. Now. Sakura attempted to calm Ino down. I'm sure they'll both do really good. Sakura, I'm not sure I know you anymore. Ino shook her head and returned to cheering for Sasuke. It shall be interesting to see the outcome either way, Shino said as he readjusted his glasses. For sure, Chuji said between munches. The last of our class versus the top student also from our class. The genius of hard work versus the natural-born genius, Shikamaru mumbled. On the arena floor, Hayat was gazing up at the crowd. They were all starting to look pretty eager, which was no surprise. Sasuke was a favorite in this tournament after all. You both ready? I know it hasn't exactly been 5 minutes, but the crowd is looking pretty anxious. Hayat asked as he looked at both boys. Naruto laughed aloud. Please, I've been waiting for the day I get to show this guy up since the academy. Sasuke scoffed. Whenever we spared at the academy I kicked your sorry A. Hayat looked at them both again. Is that a yes? Just start this, they said together. Alright, let the fourth match of Konoha's Chunin exam tournament begin. As before, Hayat dropped his hands and jumped backwards. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto immediately created 3 clones and all 4 of them were running forward. Sasuke activated his Sharingan and slipped into a defensive stance. The first Naruto reached him and threw a punch. Sasuke smirked and ducked under the clone's strike and then struck it in the back of his head with an elbow. The clone tumbled forward and hit the ground. 2 charged at once this time, but Sasuke jumped over them and attacked the one in the back that had started forming seals with a hard kick to the head, his face into the ground. Now for you. Sasuke turned and ran at the last 2. Naruto clone hammer. Naruto shouted as he grabbed onto the arm of his last clone and swung it at Sasuke. Wah! Sasuke, completely got off guard by the unorthodox attack, got clocked in the side of the head by the clone's foot. He stumbled but managed to stay on his feet. Ha! Gets them every time. Naruto gave himself a high five. Idiot, Sasuke mumbled. What was that? The clone shouted and charged forward. Meanwhile the other one stayed back and began running through hand signs. Sasuke watched the clone's taijutsu with one eye and Naruto's ninjutsu with his other eye. Alright, he deflected the clone's punch and knocked it to the side before running through a set of seals. Suten, Suiban no Jutsu. 4 whips of water appeared out of nowhere around Naruto and fired off at Sasuke. Doton, Doryuheiki no Jutsu. Sasuke inhaled and sprayed mud from his mouth right in front of himself. A small wall of earth rose from the mud, but when Naruto's whips hit the mud wall it began getting bigger. The hell? Naruto asked. Sasuke ran out from the wall, throwing a kunai as he did. Don't you know anything about elemental affinities? Water can't beat earth. The kunai exploded, catching Naruto in the blast. Sasuke ran at the last Naruto left. I commend you though, Sasuke complimented. Substituting with your clone after I knocked it aside, I didn't even notice right away. Naruto blocked Sasuke's punch and then jumped over his sweep kick. Naruto's other 2 clones ran at him and Sasuke jumped backwards to get away from them while running through a set of seals. Futen, Shinkua. Sasuke breathed out a blast of wind that deeply into the clones. However, they all managed to stay in existence. Damn, that's some endurance. Your wind isn't sharp enough. You have to imagine a blade when you fight with the wind. Naruto lectured. I don't need to be lectured by someone who doesn't know what's weak against what. Sasuke grumbled. Oh yeah, just cause water is water and earth is earth means it'll lose every time. Naruto pointed at Sasuke dramatically as he talked. Duh. Sasuke responded. Well, I think that's crap. I'll just overpower your earth with so much water it won't know what happened. Naruto formed a horse seal and a red aura slowly started to leak around him. Sasuke smirked. He had been waiting for this. His Sharingan began spinning rapidly. He blinked and suddenly his whole world changed. He was back inside Naruto's mind. What the hell happened? How did I get here? Naruto shouted in outrage. Uchiha, Sasuke. Kyuubi muttered darkly. It was apparently still mad about the last time it had its connection from Naruto C. Sorry Naruto, but I can't afford to fight you while you use this power. Sasuke's eyes were still spinning and the chakra flowing from the cage was suddenly see off. Damn it, that's no fair. I never should have told you about the fox. Naruto pouted and stamped his foot. You didn't tell me, you idiot. Remember, you let it take you over. Sasuke shouted. That's aside the point. Naruto yelled back. Damn it. Let's yell at each other outside. We probably look stupid just standing there staring at each other. Sasuke began fading away and soon vanished from Naruto's mindscape. Stupid jerk, Naruto mumbled as he vanished too. Those idiots are getting way too comfortable when they come in here. I'm the QB, damn it. Sasuke blinked and he was outside. A second later and Naruto yelling at him confirmed that he was outside too. So what are you going to do now? No red chakra means you can't overpower my Doton. Sasuke smirked at the blonde. Naruto narrowed his eyes. You think I need red chakra to do that? I'm going to teach you why you don't know anything, Sasuke-chan. Naruto began running through seals. Sasuke's eyes widened as he sensed the volume of chakra being released. Naruto, what are you doing? With that much chakra you'll... Sasuke didn't get to finish as Naruto inflated like a balloon just briefly before exhaling a huge amount of water. Sasuke was forced to jump before he got bowled over by a wave, but it didn't just stop there. Naruto kept spewing more and more water until the level rose halfway up the stadium. Phew, Naruto was gasping for breath. I've never actually performed the technique without the red chakra. It's pretty damn taxing. You idiot, do you have any idea what you've done? Proctor, is this okay? Sasuke turned and shouted at Hayate. Hayate coughed before answering. It's no problem, if it is within one's power to alter the arena then go for it. Naturally, the arena will remain like this until a different contestant changes it. So it might be this way up to the final round. Sasuke shook his head in disbelief. What a waste of chakra, having to run around on top of this water. Just break the wall then. Naruto immediately covered his clone's mouth. Sasuke sighed. That'd be an even bigger waste. I don't have chakra to throw around like you. Naruto smirked. I'll go ahead and admit it, what I did cost me pretty heavily. I'm going to have to start playing smart too. As he said this, all his clones were pulling out chakra knives. So wasting your chakra on that is what you call smart? Sasuke deadpanned. Naruto shook his head. Don't misunderstand. They can use all the chakra they want since I've already created them. If they use all they got then they disappear. Simple as that. Well damn, Sasuke began running through seals quickly. The clones were beginning to pump chakra into the knives. Kaiten, Gokakyu no Jutsu. Sasuke spit a giant ball of fire just as the clones launched their blades of wind. The wind blades hit the fireball, causing it to grow bigger and bigger. Oh, crap, Naruto cursed. He forgot wind was weak against fire. The fireball exploded just as it reached the clones, dispelling the two of them and sending large amounts of steam everywhere. Damn, it's hot, Naruto shouted as he started to run away from the incredibly hot water he was standing on. Just as he appeared out of the steam, a giant spinning shuriken came flying around. Like that will hit me. Naruto jumped over it but then saw a second one break away from the shadow of the first. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto created a single clone beneath him which he jumped on to launch himself higher. Naruto created 6 more clones this way and used each one to propel him higher and higher. Soon Naruto was far higher than even the Hokage. Let's see you stop me while I'm up here. Naruto laughed to himself. He was slowly falling back towards the ground but he already had a plan. Once Sasuke popped a clone he would create a wave using the boiling hot water. With this he could pin Sasuke in a corner where he would use the wind blades again, but this time he would create a strong gust. Sasuke, thinking it would be just a blade, would release another fire jutsu and fall right into Naruto's trap. Hehe, perfect. Naruto laughed to himself just as the image of a clone being destroyed came into his mind. Time to go. Naruto began forming seals but paused. That bastard, Naruto hadn't anticipated this. It looked like it had been another clone that had popped his clone, but that just meant Sasuke had gotten smart and hanged into an exact look-alike of him. First my Suiten, then my red chakra, then my blades, but lastly my clones. Naruto was yelling at the top of his lungs. You would be able to cancel out everything I know how to do, you are. He landed back down on the water which wasn't nearly as hot as before. He immediately dispelled all of his clones so there was only him and another Sasuke disguised as him left. So what you going to do now? Sasuke didn't even bother breaking the henge, a fact that irritated Naruto. I guess I'm going to go with the trend and get rid of my weights this round too. Naruto unhooked them both and they sunk to the bottom of the arena. If you take everything I have, then Taijutsu it has to be. Naruto settled into a Goken stance. Unfortunately I can see through that too. Unless you're as fast as Lee-san, my eyes will catch you. Sasuke settled into his own fighting stance. Don't underestimate me, Naruto shouted as he vanished. He reappeared behind Sasuke in the middle of a spinning kick. Sasuke ducked under the kick and brought his whole foot completely upwards, catching Naruto in the side of the head and sending him to the water. Naruto rolled and was immediately back on his feet and charging. He brought his fist backwards. To anyone else the movements would have been too fast, but to Sasuke Naruto might as well have been crawling. The Uchiha stepped forward and his elbow into Naruto's face before the blonde even got his fist close to Sasuke. Naruto gave a scream of pain as Sasuke then stepped forward and buried his fist in his stomach. He then jumped and delivered a powerful kick that sent Naruto skipping across the water. The crowd sat there dumbfounded. Sasuke was still hanged as Naruto and most of them weren't sure which was which anymore. Damn it, Naruto's voice came out nasally. He was willing to bet Sasuke had broken his nose with that elbow. Normally he wouldn't be worried about it because it would heal fast, but a certainer had seen him off from the fox. Is there really nothing I can do against those eyes? Naruto pondered aloud. Not a thing, Sasuke answered. He hadn't heard Naruto but he had read his lips. If it uses chakra I can see it, and you might as well be a glowing beacon of chakra. Uses chakra, that's it. Naruto shouted triumphantly as he stood up, dripping down his face. What? Sasuke asked in confusion as he watched Naruto form the ram seal again. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto shouted, but this time instead of just creating just 3 clones he created 20. There was a whole battalion of Narutos. Sasuke chuckled. I'll admit that you coordinate 3 clones perfectly. Even I have a hard time competing with you like that, but there's no way you can effectively control 20 at once. They'll just get in each other's way. I told you don't underestimate me. I put most of what I had left into this, so you better get ready for it. Naruto shouted as he and his 20 clones charged right at Sasuke. Sasuke smirked and charged back at them. This was going to be easy. All he had to do was charge headlong into them and they would all be too confused. This wasn't going to be a problem at all. Sasuke and the clones met, and as planned Sasuke immediately got into the center of the clones, but then to his complete shock they all popped out of existence at once, covering the whole area he was in with smoke. What the hell? I don't understand. Why dispel them? Lee didn't understand what had just happened. It's a smokescreen, Hinata answered, smiling brightly at Naruto's tactic. But can't Sasuke-san's Sharingan see through a smokescreen? Hinata shook her head. Do you know why shadow clones give off smoke when they pop? Lee thought about it for a second before shaking his head. That smoke is chakra outside of the body dispelling into the air. Because of that my Byakugan can't even see through it. To Sasuke's Sharingan while he was in the middle of it the effect was probably something similar, a flashbang. As she finished explaining the smoke cleared to reveal both Narutos. One was standing and the other was floating on the surface of the water. Naruto got him. Lee shouted. You should pay closer attention. Neji spoke for the first time. Huh? Lee asked. Your teammate was the one with a broken nose. Neji answered. No way, Hinata said suddenly as she was looking down at the water. The one laying on the surface had been leaking out of his nose. The Naruto that was standing puffed into smoke and Sasuke was revealed in his place. His Sharingan isn't active, Lee said. While he had been hanged as Naruto they couldn't tell, but now that he wasn't it was obvious. He saw through Naruto's tactic. Naruto-kun, lost. Sasuke smirked as he stared down at Naruto. It was a good move Naruto, but I already know how you think. This match is my win. The crowd was cheering crazily. Ino was going wild from her seat and everyone else did their best to ignore her. Sasuke turned and started walking towards the Genin box. He only got a couple steps though before a bubbling below his feet caught his attention. Then 2 whips of water shot up and wrapped around both of his arms. The hell? The Naruto laying on the surface of the water popped just as another Naruto broke the surface of the water right in front of Sasuke. I told you never to underestimate me. Naruto channeled all his strength into his fist as he sent it flying forward. Sasuke wasn't able to do anything as it connected with his face, sending him flying across the water. He skipped a couple of times before he s against the wall and then collapsed back to the water. Naruto stood there panting heavily. He had put every ounce of thinking he had into that strategy and it had paid off. Sasuke coughed up but somehow he managed to get back to his feet. He wobbled a little but then started walking forward on the water. Not bad. Naruto. His Sharingan activated and he started forming seals. Naruto smiled at him but suddenly cringed and bent over. Damn it, I'm about out of chakra. Sasuke meanwhile finished the seals and a blade of electricity formed in his hands. Chidori. Sasuke yelled and then charged forward. Naruto cursed and racked his brain for a way out. He could create a clone to intercept the damage but that would only delay the inevitable. He needed to do something that would let him win. Guess I've got to try it. Naruto nodded to himself as he crouched slightly. This fight is over, Naruto. Sasuke yelled. He was just a couple feet away. He took one more step and then swung his arm forward. First gate, open. Naruto shouted just a moment before vanishing. What? Sasuke didn't even see Naruto move. A second later though and a foot to his chin revealed that Naruto had just gone right beneath him. Naruto flipped so he was looking at the water and launched himself upwards. He appeared right next to Sasuke who was still suspended in the air. This fight is over when I say it's over, Sasuke. Naruto brought his foot down hard on top of his opponent's head, him powerfully into the water and creating a massive splash, sending water spraying into the crowd. Naruto landed on top of the rocking water and immediately dropped to his knees. He held his side and was panting even heavier than before. I can't believe I actually managed to open it. The whole crowd waited with bated anticipation for Sasuke to emerge from the water. They didn't have to wait long. Sasuke broke free from the water gasping for breath and attempting to pull himself up. After a few failed attempts he managed to get on top of the water. You got me, Naruto. Sasuke looked up at him and Naruto saw his Sharingan was no longer active. You really are. Sasuke started to slip back into the water. A genius. He disappeared below as he lost consciousness. Naruto stared with wide eyes at the spot Sasuke had just been at. He had just acknowledged him in front of everyone. The feeling it gave him was indescribable. The winner is Uzumaki Naruto. Hayate announced. He won. He won. Hinata and Lee were holding each other and jumping around in circles. Yes, that's my student. That's how Team Guy rolls. Guy bellowed. 3 for 3. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.